Hey everybody, how you doing today? So in today's Book of Backgrounds video, I want to do some experimenting with some stamping. I am by far not even close to being an expert on stamping. I just like experimenting. So if something doesn't make sense to you, comment below to let me know how you would do it instead. But in saying that, it's all about your own self-expression on doing stuff. So there's a reason why I'm going to be doing this. And I'm going to be doing this over 3 different videos to keep them nice and short. So what I have on my table is I've got some 140-pound paper. I'm going to be doing the typical thing of priming it with gesso, but then I'm going to be using the fluid acrylics in a very washy state to create a you'd have to see it, but the way the background that I want to do, then I'm going to be using the stamps to create something very abstract with stamps. And the stamps I'm going to be experimenting with, not stamps, the stamp pads, is I'm going to be experimenting with the StazOn, Memento, Luxe, and the Distress. I already know what they're each going to do, but I've never done them in this fashion as a book of backgrounds because I already know what I'm going to be doing with this piece in the actual creation stage in another video. So there'll be 3 videos with this. For the brushes, I would like to use this little brush. I'm going to experiment with this Monster Honkin' brush. This is a number 24 long-handled round brush. Nice and big. Don't need a pen. So I'm going to be experimenting with that. And for the stamps, anything. Doesn't matter. So don't ask me where I got these or where they're from. These are old. I don't even remember where I got them. So I've got grunge letters. Grunge font. This is Kaisercraft, if I'm even pronouncing it right. Circles and swirls. Another Kaisercraft chicken wire. Moss, one of my favorite. And then I've got this ticket and this round thing. So I'm going to be using those. Alrighty, let's gesso this first. Oh, I need a little bristle. Nope. Large brush. So I'm just going to prime this, and as with all the other videos, I already have a piece done, but depending on when you're watching this video, you wouldn't have seen the actual prep part. So I'm covering this part in each video, but it is super short. So priming the paper simply helps the paint sit on top and it doesn't get absorbed right into the paper. That way you can move it around and it dries a little bit faster. Okay, and I just used a flat brush for that. And the gesso, now the gesso that I use for this one, it's a Decor Media, the white gesso, but this is the one that I've thinned down with a little bit of distilled water. So I'll put that aside, where I have no idea, and take one that I've already prepared. Now with the Book of Backgrounds video, I'm going to be asking a question at the end of the video, and comment below with the answer to the question, and then in a couple of weeks from the time this video is published, Joe will randomly pick somebody. I cut the background in half. That person gets one half of the background, I get the other half. And the only thing I ask in return is to show me a picture of what you end up creating on it. Not mandatory. Alright, so you'll have to stay for that question. I'm going to dip my round brush in some water. And I'm going to work light to dark with this. So, oh, I guess it would help if you knew what colors I was using, right? You'll get an idea why I'm using these colors too. I'm kind of off right now. I did, before even walking to the studio, I walked the mountain brow this morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, watching the sunrise. I'm a little tired. Did 10,000 steps before even getting in here. I'm a bit tired. Okay. Focus. I'm going to work backwards. So what I have is the Decor Media Fluid Acrylics, Titanium White, Hansa Yellow Light, Derylid Yellow, Green Gold, Yellow Green Light, Sap Green, and Phthalo Green Yellow. You already know that, other than, you know, these ones here. These colors are typically not ones I use in my extended palette. I want to use up my paint. Sap Green, Yellow Green Light, and Green Gold. You can make these. All you need is Phthalo Green Yellow. And then some types of yellows. So sap green is made up with phthalo green yellow, some black, some brown, and a yellow. Yellow green light is made up with phthalo green yellow, Derylid yellow, and white. Green gold is made up with phthalo green yellow, another yellow, and it's PY 151, which I don't have. So I would just experiment between Hansa Yellow Light, Hansa Yellow Medium, Hansa Yellow, somewhere around there. All right. Do I even need the white? Actually, I don't think so. I don't even need that. So let's go with the Hansa Yellow Light. I'm going to take some water and I'm going to focus. Pop that there. Just get a nice random shape. I think I'm too far out. And there's going to be a lot of heat gun work in here, so dry that with the heat gun. Now, if you don't have a heat gun, you can let it air dry. I'm just trying to keep these videos short. All right, so I'm going to take that dirty brush with more water, and I'm just going to go all over the place again. You can use watercolors as well, if you want. I'm going to take a little bit of Derelid Yellow, go right back in here, and I just realized that my palette is still dirty from the previous lesson. And I'm just going to pop some of that in there. And this is where I'm going to start building up some shapes. Kind of like that. So remember, we're going for semi-abstract. Now again, you can let this dry or you can speed it up. And then I'm going to, again, take the dirty brush again in that mixture in the palette. And I'm going to go now into green gold. Take a little bit more water. And what I'm doing is I'm just layering. Typically, if I'm working on a fine art piece, I wouldn't thin the wouldn't thin the paint down so much, because if you add too much water, it breaks the strength of the pigment. This is only a base because I'm going to be able to varnish it after, or not varnish, but matte medium to protect it. And it's going to be interesting when I start pulling in a lot of the darker colors. Now I'm just blotting up a little bit. And while the paint is wet, I'm going to go into a little bit of green light. You can see with what I'm doing is keeping the palette of colors very close together. That way it's always going to be harmonious. I'm working with greens that lean towards yellow. If I were to bring in Viridian in this, which is a green that leans towards blue, it may be a different story. Well, it will be a different story because that's a green that leans towards blue. So all of these colors all have a base of phthalo green yellow. Take a bit more water, and I'm going to go into some sap green. Now this, I was tempted to go to a cosmetic sponge to kind of brush this on. So I'm going to see what it would, how it's going to work with. I like these lines, and so remember, we're going for semi-abstract. Well, actually the background is going to be more abstract. And this is a nice thing to do when you're playing some music. You're playing some music on with this. Now let's just gently blend those together. Try not to remove the brush strokes. Like that. I'm going to dry this now. Now I have to keep in mind as well that I'm going to be cutting this in half. So I've got a kind of like an imaginary line here. So I'm going to remember, whatever I do, I should assume that, well, not assume, but I'm going to be thinking, being mindful that it is two pieces. And I'm going to do a soft rub. Now what I'm thinking of is an airbrush technique. Flip the airbrush. So I'm going to go to sap green. I'm just going to rub this, and I'm making sure that I'm turning the baby wipe so I don't have a unique pattern being built up. I think I was off camera there. And it's a nice, I'm applying a glaze of color. You may think, well, why are you wiping it off on your paper? Well, if you haven't watched the video yet, I'm going to be using this paper pad as a book cover down the road. So you can see, as you add that glaze, and then you let each piece dry in between. You keep adding and adding and adding. Now, to make it even more luminescent, put a layer of glazing medium, or you can use a mixture of matte medium and gloss medium to get something satin. Matte medium sometimes by itself, think of matte medium is where it's not shiny, so sometimes it's kind of cloudy. So adding a mixture of matte medium with the gloss medium is nice. There we go. I like that. Now I can actually use the same thing. I'm going to go into the Hansa Yellow Light. And it doesn't matter what you do. You're never going to brighten this up even more because yellow is transparent. But what I'm doing is I'm putting a glaze, so where the color is really light, that yellow is just going to intensify. If you want to make this lighter, you have to add white. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I want to darken this a little bit more. So if I take some phthalo green and some Derylid yellow, see, look at the color I'm getting already. Take a bit more Derylid yellow. Like that. I'm going to rinse that brush. I don't need it now. Except I need to neutralize that a little bit. Well, let's see what happens when we just go with this. Because the color, because it gets darker. It gets darker. Oh, I didn't listen to my own advice. This is 2 pieces. I have to darken it here as well. I didn't listen to my own advice. My own advice. There we go. That's gonna make sense. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this really, really well, and going to then experiment with the stamp. So the stamp experiment is going to be done over 3 videos, and what I'll be using each one because I want to see what it's going to look like. And I'll change up the colors though, because I'm also working with a color scheme. So let me dry this. Now, if you don't have a stamp pad, you can use black ink as well. You just have to make sure that you clean your stamps. Now, a great way to do this is when wherever you go shopping, you can pick up a lot of these stamps and stuff from clearance places. And if you're in Hamilton, did I just get, oh, nuts. Did I get paint on myself? No, I don't think so. Lens Mill, they have a lot of clearance stuff as well. Okay, the distress one I'm going to do at the end. Now, one of the experiments with the StazOn and the Memento, StazOn is smelly. It's a solvent ink, where Memento is this one's a mixed media ink. So I want to try that one first. So all I'm going to do is just take my stamp. You notice I'm not stamping over everything. Okay. And then you clean it. I'll put that over here. Then I'll get the next one. And I'll just do this and do this. I'm going with a couple of different letters. Like I said, you can do this really any way you want. Okay, I have to be a little bit more careful here. And making sure that it is going to remain abstract. So I'm not placing it in the exact same spot. I love these ones. These are all these different shapes. So of course, gotta get circles in there. And that circle, and yes, I can use my acrylic base on this. I forgot to get it out, so no big deal. Not everybody has them. Let's see if it's cut in half. And that one. So just randomly stamping. Well, I should actually turn that. I use phthalo colors on that. It's nice and blue. Right on top, And I'm not pressing everywhere, so it's giving different impressions. And oh, let me do this one first. So this is the circles. And then working on off the paper as well. And then the ticket. The ticket I'm not going to do too much. How about right there? Oh, that one didn't even show. That one didn't even show either. There we go. I wonder why that didn't show. Let me try that again. Oh, it just didn't press. So now I don't like that hard edge that's there. But, oh well. A little baby off. One there. One there. And you just go on and whatever. Now what I'm going to do is take that right in the middle. Bet you it's not in the middle though. Oh. So now when it's cut, it's going to be half a butterfly, or half a moth. I think this is pretty good now. Put something here. I'm just making sure that I've got coverage everywhere, because remember, this is just a background, an abstract background, where we can just build on top of that. So what I'm going to do now with this one is the directions suggest that you heat set this. So I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to use it in the same fashion that I've always done, high up, and then use my hand as a gauge for how hot it gets. Moment of truth. Is it permanent? Let's take, well, I'm going to use a baby wipe, a little piece here. And let's go into a place that's not so obvious. Oh, not really. So maybe I didn't heat, oh, but I can break that up. Maybe I didn't heat set it enough. Heat set ink for permanence on porous surfaces, including fabric. Images, oh, on fabric. Archival and ideal for paper, fabric, leather, wood, and more. Anybody out there use this stuff? Why is this not permanent? Okay, it's better. It's better, it's just a little bit's coming up. So now knowing that, with the permanence of this, I'm going to apply, I'm going to let this come to room temperature. Then off camera, I'll just apply a layer of matte medium, which is where? Actually, let me just show you because I know what's going to happen. If it works, if it doesn't, I want you guys to see that process. And not to overwork it. Oh, it seems to be all right. That one's smudging. All right, so my question to you guys is, has anybody used the Memento Luxe ink before? The mixed media ink pad. Have you found, how do you get it to stay permanent? Now, please don't tell me use whatever other brand. I already know about the other brands. This specific one, have you guys ever used that for your mixed media pieces where it is permanent? So do you have to heat set it longer? Is there a certain temperature? Is it a certain, shorter, longer? Do you have to, like, anything that you have with this? If you've never used this stuff before, now the question is, what do you use as your go-to ink to stamp permanent? Okay, so Tim Holtz stuff is not, the Distress, it's not permanent. So I use the Stays On, but it smells. So I'd like to hear from you on that. If you don't use this, what do you use? All right, so comment below. Then in a couple of weeks from the time that the video is published, Joel's going to pick a name. You're going to get half the background. I'll give you half the background that's not smudged. You're going to get this one here. You'll get that one there. And then see what you can make out of it. Alrighty, so I am going to let that dry. I'm going to clean up. I'm going to change up the colors and then do another video like this, working with a different color scheme, using a different stamp pad, using the exact same process to experiment on permanence. And until I see you in that video, stay inspired.